It is always a sad day when I have to take down some of the decorations from whatever season it was, Halloween or Christmas. It's an even sadder day when the decorations pulled the sheetrock off the wall. You got tape marks all scuffed up on the wall. You have the literal sheetrock. What kind of tape was I using is what I want to know. If I wasn't decorating for Christmas in a few weeks and probably gonna ruin it even more, I would fix it. But I don't really think it's worth it. But what is going on, peeps? Welcome back to a brand new video. My bad about missing last week. I needed a little bit of a break. With that being said, I did get a lot of stuff done. I planned out the rest of the year's videos. I've been working on some sponsors here and there, so look out for that. And most importantly, the merch is complete. It is up right now in my merch store. We got hoodies, we got the t-shirt competition winners, backpacks, socks, posters, literally anything you could want. The link is in the very top of the description. Most of that stuff will only be up for the next month or so get it now while you can. But getting back to this week's recipe, I put the poll on my community tab. You guys seem to like that a lot better. More of you have access to it. And as you can see, the 7 fall breakfast treats won. I have to say, it kind of cracks me up that stuff like a giant cinnamon roll and cinnamon glazed donuts are considered breakfast here. Not to mention, I've done that giant cinnamon roll before. I'm just gonna pick out the actual breakfast items here. So, the crunchy churro French toast sticks, the apple cinnamon oatmeal bars, and the cinnamon roll pancakes. All of which looks amazing, and I am very excited to give a try today, so let's get right into it. So first on our agenda today are the oatmeal bars, mainly because these are probably going to be the easiest to make. And for those I grabbed some old-fashioned oats and brown sugar, kosher salt and baking soda, some normal flour and white sugar, butter, cinnamon, a few apples, and a few teaspoons worth of cornstarch. Now first things first, I want to tend to my apples. You want to chop them in half. Remove the inside with the seeds and the hard bits and slice them as thin as you can. I was kind of surprised here that they left the skin on. Even after baking, the skin stays kind of tough, so it'll be interesting to see how this comes out. I know that those are all ready to go. I threw them into my bowl along with some sugar and cornstarch. I gave them a bit of a mix before adding in my cinnamon. I'm also kind of surprised that we're not adding any brown sugar or nutmeg or lemon juice to this. I guess I'm thinking too much of an apple pie and not an oatmeal bar. And now we just have to make our dry oat crust layer, whatever you want to call it. It's basically a mix of sugar, flour, oats, salt, some butter. And you want this to end up being a kind of like mealy texture. One where you can form a solid ball, but it kind of like crumbs apart easily in your hand, if that makes any sense at all. And now down into my 9x13 oven-safe pan with some parchment paper on the bottom. You want to use half of that oat mixture to make your bottom crust. Kind of press that down a little bit. Throw in your apples and spread them evenly across. And then the rest of your oat mixture goes right on top of that. I'm a little bit worried that this isn't going to stay together when we try to cut these into bricks, so I kind of pressed everything down, got it really compact, and then into a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes or until you start to see some browning around the edges. I was very happy to see that once I took it out and let it cool and chopped them up, they seemed to stay together, the apples seemed to be cooked pretty well, the bottom crust looks browned and nice, so I'm gonna put these aside and move on to recipe number 2. Next up are these cornflake crusted churro French toast sticks. Top 10 crossovers of 2018, I would say so. You're gonna wanna grab some cornflakes, or frosted flakes in my case, some cinnamon and brown sugar, some vanilla extract and milk, a couple of eggs, a stick of butter, and they asked for brioche bread in the recipe. My grocery store unfortunately did not have any, but they did have some challah bread, which is similar enough. Now when I was buying this bread, I was pretty convinced that I would get a couple of portions out of this loaf. Come to find out that I may get 8 pieces. I mean, they are pretty massive, so you would probably only need 2 or 3. but still, a whole loaf of bread is pretty surprising. You only get 8 pieces. You're also going to want to lightly crush your cornflakes or whatever cereal you're using. Remember, you don't want a powder, you still want some texture to this. And right about there, I was pretty happy with how mine was looking. And now for the batter that we're actually dipping our bread into, I combined some cinnamon and brown sugar, some vanilla and milk, and a few eggs before I mix this all together. This is a pretty standard French toast recipe, I'd assume. And very quickly, you want to dip your bread in the mix. Don't let it get too soggy so it's mushing in your hand. And then just coat it in your cereal and it is ready to be fried. I had mine over medium heat with plenty of butter in the pan. I did a few sticks at a time. You want to let this get a nice brown on the outside so it's nice and crispy, but warms up that inside enough so it's nice and soft. With 2 of our 3 recipes now complete, we only have one more to do, which is the cinnamon roll pancakes. By far what I'm most excited for because I get them at IHOP all the time, so. It also has the most ingredients. I'm gonna use some soy milk instead of almond milk for obvious reasons, some oil and kosher salt, baking powder and flour, brown sugar, cinnamon, butter, and a $8 bottle of syrup. You guys asked me why I used that corn syrup flavored mess. This is why. I figured because we're actually including it in the recipe and not just using it as a topping at the end, I'll splurge a little bit. Now this pancake batter is surprisingly really simple. It's basically just flour, baking powder, and salt as your dry ingredients. And then for your wet stuff, either almond milk or soy milk, a little bit of your syrup, and then just combine everything together. I'm sure most people, including myself, just use that box stuff. This really isn't that many more steps, and I'm sure it's stuff that we all have in our cabinets anyway. Why do I feel like an infomercial host right now? Now for the cinnamon sugar mix, it's 3 tablespoons of butter or margarine, 5 tablespoons of your brown sugar, and then 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I noticed right away that this seemed a little heavy on the cinnamon, so I kept a little bit of mine out, and it ended up turning out okay. So all that's left to do is cook up some pancakes. I used a 1/4 cup measurement for each individual pancake to try to keep them around the same size. You also want to give a nice little spiral swirl with your cinnamon. And matching right up with my initial worries when I first watched this video, when you flip the pancake, the cinnamon sugar mix just melts out. It kind of just evaporates. Even in Tasty's original video, like you could see where it once was, where it kind of just melted out and burned in the pan, probably. I did a few different batches here. I tried it on different temperatures. I tried to cook the bottom half 80% of the way and then just cook the second half for a few seconds. It still turned out like a mess. They definitely aren't the prettiest looking pancakes, but they still should taste pretty good. And now that all 3 of our recipes are complete, let's give them a try. Do you guys like my motivation wall about all you nice people in my comments telling me about the weight that I'm gaining? And now I'm about to eat some churro stuffed cinnamon deep fried French toast sticks. So first on the menu is our oatmeal bars. They look pretty good. Maybe some more browning on top would have been nice. The flavor is really good. I like that crust a lot. I probably would just like it better if the skin wasn't on the apples. You kind of get like a weird, tough texture in your mouth, and then as you bite them, you're like pulling out the rest of the apples too, so. Outside of that, pretty good. I'll give it like a 7.5 out of 10. Next up, our cornflake crusted churro French toast sticks. I think that's right. And I have more of our very expensive maple syrup to put on top. You guys may call that one on top burnt. I call it lightly blackened. I don't think I even need a fork, right? That's the point of French toast sticks. Just go for it. Ooh. That tastes like tree bark. At first I thought the tree flavor was from the thing somehow. Turns out it's the syrup. The bread is really good though. It still has a nice crunch around the outside. The inside is super soft. And I just love brioche and challah bread. It's so good. Outside of the bark syrup, I would probably eat this whole plate. I'll give that a 9.5 out of 10. And finally, for these not so pretty pancakes, I had a feeling that was gonna happen. I didn't think they look that bad. They kind of just look like they got massacred at some point. Also, my delicious corn syrup imitation maple syrup. I'm sorry to the Canadians out there and anybody else who I just offended with that. It's what I grew up on, okay? That's delicious. I kind of oddly like the overcooked sugar. It gives it like an extra crunchy texture that pancakes normally don't have. I'm sure that wasn't the intention, but I kind of like it. I would definitely reuse that pancake batter recipe though. It was really easy and it tastes really good. All in all, not too shabby for our first week back. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. If you did, leave me a big like under this one. Like I said, in the top line of the description is my merch page. Even if you don't want to buy stuff, go check it out. Tell me on Twitter or Instagram what you think of some of the stuff, some of the designs. Next week I will have 2 videos for you on Tuesday and Friday most likely, so be excited for those. Other than that, have an awesome weekend and I'll see you right back here next time.